Now I'm going to be reading you information on mandated reporters here in Nebraska. It says mandated reporters in Nebraska. Nebraska state law requires that any person who believes a child has been or is being abused or neglected make a report. The identity of the person who made the report is confidential and cannot be released. So you can lie and be protected. If you lie about child abuse, your name is protected and no charges can be brought against you, apparently. Am I interpreting that wrong? Anyway, it says the identity of the person who made the report is confidential and cannot be released. State law also requires that all reports that meet the definition of abuse and neglect are addressed. Now, have they been? I need help to make these reports and to not be abused. Now, there's also elder abuse, which falls under the same guidelines. The same guidelines. I'm outright telling these people that I'm being abused and trying to get them to look at the evidence. When Tara Smith came down, she didn't look at the evidence. I tried to show her, but she wanted to give me excuses, and I do have that recorded. Now, she did speak about how, yeah, the cops get away, especially in western Nebraska, with pretty much whatever they want. When somebody is coming to you about abuse, it needs to be taken seriously. When somebody is called mentally ill, they are denied these rights. They need you to do it for them because they are not allowed. They will be treated the way that I have been treated for the last 5 years of trying to get help. Let's see. It says what states are mandated reporters? That's a weird question, but it says 20. Alabama, California, Connecticut, Iowa, Kansas, Massachusetts, Michigan, New York, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Texas, Vermont, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And guess what? When Rihanna was abusing those kids, I tried to do what it is that you're supposed to do, mandated reporting. How did I get treated? She's obviously an alcoholic. She's obviously the abuser, but she's also female. So it magically makes it okay. They dropped the charges on her. She did abuse those kids and they dropped the charges. Meanwhile, they held on to the charges on me and refused to give me back evidence that I needed to turn in my predators here in Dual County, Nebraska, and my predators in Colorado, as well as the way that they treated me, the law enforcement in Wyoming. They wouldn't allow me to have, that's right, literally this computer. Literally this computer full of evidence of abuse against me. Now, they're not going to bring any charges against any of these people who committed crimes against me, but they'll outright manufacture crimes in order to prevent me from showing it, in order to steal my evidence and prevent me from turning it in. All of these people are mandated reporters. What must be reported in mandatory reporting? Now, I sent many of these people evidence and they still didn't turn it in. They claimed that they did. They claimed that they did, and I recorded conversations where they claimed that they did. But then they want to play like I'm a bad person because I had to post it up. How they were treated when they went in. How no matter what, there is some excuse why they can't do it. They say, I got to go in and make the reports. What happens when I go in to make the reports? It's not that I didn't tell people about this, it's that they simply didn't care because it's not happening to them. I'm not human enough for them to tell the truth. That is what they are saying and showing loud and proud. Is that I'm not a human being and they don't care what happens to me. It's not that I didn't try to turn in the abuse. It's that people didn't care. Meanwhile, my predators sure care, don't they? Now, between you telling the truth and trying to destroy evidence of abuse, you try to destroy evidence of abuse. That's not okay. Let's see. It says in some jurisdictions, e.g., NSW and NT, it is mandatory to report suspicions of all 5 recognized types of abuse and neglect, i.e., physical abuse. I've been through that. Sexual abuse, I've been through that. Emotional abuse, I've been through that. Neglect, I've been through that. And exposure to family violence. I'm not just exposed to family violence. See, I left my family because of their violence, because of their cruelty, because of, well, their drug abuse and the way that they treated people and each other because of their drug abuse. Now, I don't know where NSW is or NT, and those probably aren't Nebraska. But the only one that I haven't had to deal with the exception of when I was in the Scottsbluff jail, I went to take a shower and some sick old man wanted to peek in and say, he's peeing in the shower. Tell you what, after that, I really wanted to. I didn't have to pee in the shower. There's a toilet right there. That was the closest to sexual abuse I had to deal with, is some creeper peeking in on me in a jail shower. But the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, the neglect, and it's not just exposure to family violence. Christopher Kurth isn't my family. Neither is the guy who he brought out to Sandy Fromm's house. Now, who qualifies as a mandatory reporter? A mandatory reporter is, there are professionals that if you turn in your abuse, they have to do something, or they're committing a felony. Who qualifies as a mandatory reporter? Those required by law to file are considered mandatory reporters. These professionals can include healthcare providers, mental health providers, crisis counselors, school personnel, social workers, daycare providers, and law enforcement personnel, among others. How many of these people who looked away fall under those category of healthcare providers, mental health providers? I mean, obviously, my, what do you call it? Therapist is a mandated reporter. Obviously, I did report crimes that were committed against me. And rather than her turning those crimes in, even after seeing evidence of it, she wants to tell me about how it doesn't work. A mandated reporter basically trying to explain to me that, yeah, nobody cares. Now, that was the thing that Nicole Peralta, she didn't want to do nothing and didn't want to do nothing. I was like, hey, I am reporting abuse that I am taking, all right? That I am still taking. And she did go down to the police station and she came back and she said, well, they won't let me. Well, that's something that she needs to report on. That a mandated reporter attempted to turn in abuse against an at-risk adult, and Sydney Police Department blew her off. Now, mandated reporting laws don't just apply to children. There's also the elder abuse laws. Same exact thing, same exact abuse, same exact laws required. If you are disabled like I am, you fall under the elder abuse laws. So it's not like it doesn't say on paper that these things are illegal. It's not like I haven't shown that I've gone to these people. It's that nobody cares about the actual law. This had nothing to do with the law. It had to do with popularity and people not wanting to get in trouble, people getting embarrassed. Let's see, who is a mandated reporter examples? That's obviously not a well-written question, but it says these individuals include, but are not limited to, school teachers or employees, counselors, therapists, sorry, I don't have any teeth. My words don't always come out right, and I do apologize. I shouldn't have to, but I do. Doctors, nurses, clergy, and administrators or employees of child agencies. So, who would that include? Well, a lot of the people who are mad at me right now trying to destroy evidence. Yes, that therapist who was trying to basically convince me that nothing can be done. Well, she is a mandated reporter, is she not? And I'm not trying to get her in trouble by saying that. I'm just simply stating a fact and telling the truth. Something that is not allowed in Western Nebraska courts. And she's aware of that. So if any of these people are nurses that I turned in my abuse to and they blew me off, they broke the law. If these people are therapists and I turned my abuse into them and they did nothing about it, they broke the law. I'm trying to show someone in person what it is that I have gone through. Because I have had to travel nationwide because the mandated reporters didn't do anything. Now I'm having to depend on alcoholics like Shannon Alvarado and meth addicts like Amber and Brett up there in Virginia. Yeah, Terry is a mandated reporter by Nebraska law. Did she report it? Now, according to Nebraska law, you're a mandated reporter if you're aware of the abuse. If you want to look away from it and refuse to look at evidence, that's not my decision. You are allowing me to be abused because you simply don't care. They have these mandatory reporting laws because so many people simply just do not care. If you allow the abuse, you are just as guilty under the law. You are just as guilty in Nebraska of molesting a child if you just watch. Are priests mandatory reporters? Under existing law, clergy are required to report whenever the clergy, in their professional capacity or within the scope of their employment, has knowledge of or observes a child whom the mandated reporter knows or reasonably suspects has been the victim of child abuse or neglect. And it goes into it more. There's 3 dots, but if I click that, of course, it'll take me to a website and then see. Is a nephew a mandated reporter or a mandatory reporter? Simply put, you must report abuse according to the law if you, in your capacity as a CASA discoverer, or reasonably suspect child abuse has occurred. If a teacher discovers suspicious bruises on his infant nephew, he is not legally mandated to report it to authorities. CASA, CA, mandated reporter abuse. Do all states have reporting laws for older adults? Oh, wait, here. What happens if you don't mandatory report? If a mandatory reporter does not report an instance of child ANN, that person will be charged by the district attorney with a misdemeanor offense, such as not abiding by reporting requirements is punishable by imprisonment in the county jail for up to 6 months and or a maximum fine of $1,000. Let's see. Do all states have reporting laws for older adults? All states have mandated elder abuse reporting laws. All states have, let's see, all states have mandated elder abuse reporting laws. Reporting can help save lives, especially when a senior is in a dangerous situation. And I am in a dangerous situation. I have been in a dangerous situation, primarily because mandatory reporters did not do their jobs for an entire year before Natalie was killed. And then afterwards, they didn't care. Afterwards, they wanted to hide the fact that they didn't do their jobs, that they did commit crimes. Now, the felony obviously isn't that they didn't mandatorily report it. That's only 6 months in jail and a misdemeanor. It's the things that they did to hide it that become felonious. They knowingly and willingly did things to intentionally allow my predators to get away. Reporting can help save lives. I tried to report. I reported on elder abuse in, what do you call that place? Clearview Behavioral Health. Or at least I tried. I wasn't the only one they were doing those things to. I wasn't the only one they were abusive to. And these are not licensed mental health professionals. They pick these people up at Walmart and 7-Eleven. The employees at a behavioral health unit are not the same as in a mental hospital or a regular hospital. You don't have to have any accreditation whatsoever. You don't have to be a licensed nurse. At this point, the state of Nebraska itself is guilty of violating the mandated reporter laws in the state of Nebraska. the Dual County Sheriff, any of these nurses or doctors that I went to and told about the abuse. I tried to show the abuse just because you refused to look at it. That's one of the things that many of these mandated reporters were doing in order to not have to do their job. If they refuse to look at the evidence of the abuse, they don't have to turn it in. Mandatory elder abuse. That's right. Mandy Hughes committed a crime. The police committed many crimes. Who is a mandatory reporter for a dependent adult? And I am a dependent adult. I can't take care of myself. I have literally been saying that since before Natalie was killed. Mandated, let's see, who is mandatory reporter for a dependent adult? Mandated reporters include care custodians and any person who has assumed full or intermittent responsibility for care or custody of an elder or dependent adult, whether or not paid for by that responsibility. So that actually makes my autism advocate a mandated reporter. Can a mandated reporter make a report verbally or in writing? Inform the agency that you are a mandated reporter. File a written report within 36 hours of your verbal report on Form SS 8572. I need help doing those things. My mandated reporter is all the way in Lincoln. That's a 9-hour drive away. If she doesn't have time to make a verbal report and doesn't have time, if she does make a verbal report within 36 hours, I'm screwed. Me, it doesn't affect her at all. Let's see, who is a permissive reporter? This is a new one I've never even heard of. Voluntary reporters are also referred to as permissive reporters. A permissive reporter is any person who reports concerns of child abuse, regardless of their profession. Permissive reporters are allowed in all states to protect children from suspected child abuse and neglect. I've been incarcerated for protecting your children, just so you know. For specifically protecting your children's rights, but also, very specifically, there are multiple situations where people were abusing children. And I did try to turn it in. What does the term mandatory reporter mean? Mandatory reporting is the legislative requirement for selected classes of people to report suspected child abuse and neglect to government authorities. In NSW, mandatory reporting is regulated by the Children and Young Persons Care and Protection Act of 1998, the CARE Act. What is general neglect? General neglect means the negligent failure of a person having the care or custody of a child to provide adequate food, clothing, shelter, medical care, or supervision where no physical injury to the child has occurred. That's where no physical injury to the child has occurred. Now, keep in mind the mandatory laws, the ones for children, also apply to the elder laws. And disabled people fall under the elder laws. So all of this stuff also applies to me. And in these situations, physical injury has occurred. I was denied medical care. Not okay. What could happen if a mandated reporter suspects abuse and fails to make a report? Any mandated reporter who fails to report an incident of known or reasonably suspected child abuse or neglect is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by up to 6 months in a county jail or a fine of $1,000 or both. Did I do the right thing by turning these people in? I followed the law by turning these people in. I was still punished for it. Is elder abuse a crime? Much of what is considered elder abuse is already clearly illegal. Physical, sexual, and financial abuse is largely already criminal, and some lawyers argue that existing frameworks should simply be strengthened to better cover elder abuse. And there's a lot more here, too. Is elder abuse a federal crime? While federal law does not specifically address elder abuse, although federal legislation funds the National Center on Elder Abuse, or NCEA, all 50 states of the District of Columbia and the District of Columbia provide APS programs for victims. Really? I am a victim and I am treated like a predator. I have not had a victim's advocate through any of this. And my predators, being as they have badges, have been able to do everything in their power to prevent me from turning them in. Now I can't even legally go to the courthouse or call 911. Okay? Tell me that's not intentional neglect. How do you do a mandated report? Under CA law, well, that doesn't help us any, does it? What does APS look for? That's Adult Protective Services. What does APS do? Receives reports of alleged abuse, neglect, self-neglect, or financial exploitation and determines if the client is eligible. Investigates the allegations through interviewing the client, collateral contacts, alleged abusers, and through examining evidence such as medical and bank records. So basically, they can go through your private information. They're supposed to contact these witnesses. Did Adult Protective Services actually do this, or did they make excuses to look the other way? APS is through the Department of Health and Human Services. They won't look at the evidence. I have to show it on YouTube. Should I really have to do this? What happens when APS is called? Once a report is assessed by APS, an investigator, typically a social worker, begins working on the case. What did mine do? Showed up and told me that she couldn't do nothing and wasn't going to look at no evidence. How does that help me? An investigator, typically a social worker, begins working on the case. The investigator completes face-to-face visits, collects collateral information from those involved, and gathers medical or financial records and documents these activities. So I'm trying to get them to document the evidence of the abuse. Now, they're not looking at the evidence of the abuse. This doesn't even say they have to look at the evidence of abuse. How messed up is that? Instead, it's medical or financial records. Now, if the police that you're trying to turn in, tell the hospitals that you're schizophrenic, and then they get that piece of paper and it says, oh, well, the hospital wrote this down. Well, who told them that? My abuser who I was trying to turn in. Is that okay? Yes, Terry Jepson committed crimes. Just misdemeanors to begin with, but now that she's trying to destroy evidence of her crimes, it does fall under elder abuse. It does fall under the, let's go up here, mandatory reporting. I hear you, bud, but I can't take you outside. It is unsafe for me to do so. Sorry, guys. I gotta go.